and welcome to the Bigger Boat podcast, the movie podcast where we watch Steven Spielberg's films one by one. My name is Luke, and as always, I'm joined by a guy named Joe.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, mate?
Very well. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. That was very clever, actually. I don't know if you appreciated that, listener, because obviously we are talking about a movie today which is a remake, and the original film is called A Guy Named Joe. So that was very clever. So
he's always very clever.
Very good.
His name's Dr. Luke Bennett.
Actually, you shouldn't say it like that. What I was intending to do for this entire podcast is every time we mention the name of the film. So we're watching today Steven Spielberg's.
You want to play that clip every time
every single time. That's all I think of every time I think of... Hold on a sec, I've got to rewind it back to the bit of the song where they say it.
He's got it on cassette.
Every time we think about... That's what we're going to be doing.
I hope you can actually upload this podcast and it's not just like a massive copyright infringement.
Exactly. So this is our last episode of the Bigger Book podcast because we've been taken down by Bon Jovi.
Yeah. Shove through the heart.
Exactly. I'm to blame. How are you anyway?
I'm very good after that.
Excellent. How's your week been?
It's been very good.
This is the sort of effortless banter you're going to get on the Bigger Boat podcast.
I've seen a couple of films and, at work and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some really nice weather today, so it's all downhill from here.
Great chat.
How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been really good, thank you very much. I was up in Scotland this weekend. I had a stag do.
Oh, yes.
In Inverness, Scotland.
Yes, I've been to Inverness.
Have you?
Yes. Driven from Glasgow to Inverness.
Do the accent?
Very nice drive.
Very good. It's not offensive if the accent's bang on, so you've got nothing on us.
Yes. I have a Scottish grandfather. So
do you actually?
I had a Scottish grandfather. So there you go. That's what I'm channeling there.
Have you got like a family tartan or something like that?
We do. We're part of the Davidson clan.
Okay.
Which I think is a sort of... Pretty sure it's like a dark green tartan.
Okay, very nice. Have you worn a kilt before?
No.
No. Okay. Did I tell you that time I wore a kilt?
I was at that wedding.
At the wedding, yeah. But I'll tell you what happened beforehand.
No.
So I was an usher at this wedding. It was the first time I'd worn a kilt, and I'd hired it from this shop on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. I put it on. I was like, I look great. I look amazing. And I started walking down the street towards the wedding going, people think I'm Scottish, it's great. I was just walking in with a bit of swagger. And then I got into the building and all the other ushers were there who are all Scottish. And they're like, mate, you got your kilt on the wrong way round. I feel like an absolute dweeb. But entirely deserved. But yeah, so I was on a stag do this weekend, and it was very good. Thank you very much.
Cool.
You mentioned you had a chance to watch a film. What was the last film you watched?
The last film I watched.
Or the film you want to talk about that you watched this week?
Well, I'll mention both of them.
Okay.
I finally watched The Royal Tenenbaums.
Okay.
The Wes Anderson film.
Yeah.
Which we were talking about Wes Anderson only a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah, because I'd seen it, Isle of Dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd never seen that one before. I'll tell you what I was reminded of watching it.
Yeah.
Because it's got Gwyneth Paltrow in it.
Yes.
And playing a very, very similar character to who she plays in a film called Running with Scissors. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't seen it.
Not a Wes Anderson film, but it's very similar in tone.
Okay.
It's actually based on this real-life guy's memoir and stuff. But yeah, the tone of it is very Wes Anderson, basically.
Yes. That's the best word to describe it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Wes Anderson-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, stoic. Like, no one really, like, is affected by any of the events.
Yes. Yeah.
It's sort of what I mean, but Wes Anderson-esque.
Yeah.
It sounds better.
Sort of quirky and heightened, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, it reminded me of Running with Scissors, but Running with Scissors actually made me laugh out loud several times, whereas this was a little bit like, I'm not quite sure where this is going, not quite sure what the point is.
I'm not a big... Because I think I mentioned this in the Isle of Dogs, I don't think... It's not one of the Wes Anderson films that I've really gotten on board with. And I know it's meant to be one of his best, but it's just never really worked for me.
Weirdly, it's actually in quite a few screenwriting books.
Is it? Okay.
And so that's why I feel like obliged to sit down and actually watch it.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't understand why. Like, any character development which does actually happen, or any quirk about the character, is usually told in a voiceover during this tiny little moment.
Sure.
Which is not usually the best way to go about revealing character development.
Yeah.
And I just didn't quite get what the point of it was by the end either.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't feel like I'd been taken on any kind of journey. I'd just sort of seen like little glimpses of little moments in people's lives.
Yeah,
and they're all very flat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, because I had exactly the same experience with it, but I haven't revisited it, because I saw it. It must have been 10 years ago or so.
Yeah,
and I haven't revisited it at all.
Yeah.
If you were to recommend a Wes Anderson film to the podcast, which one would you choose?
Oh, my personal favourite is Rushmore.
Damn it, that's the one I was going to do.
Fine,
okay, and my one would be then Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen that. So
you've never seen that? That's really good. You'd really like that one.
And then the other film that I was going to mention which is weirdly on topic, based on what we were just saying.
Okay.
I should say I rewatched, because I've seen it several times.
Yeah.
4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh, amazing.
Just because I know that like the characters are more or less our age. Like I know like Hugh Grant was about 34-ish.
Are they actually? Oh,
yeah.
Depressing.
But this is what our lives are, Luke. Like now we're like 32. Weddings every weekend and stuff.
Am I old? I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, you are, yeah.
I'm not doing an Andy McDowell impression.
Oh, hello.
That's getting cut, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you seen a film this week?
I have, but before I mention that, I wanted to share with you the best fancy dress costume that I found in the world.
Yes.
And I'll post a picture of this on Twitter, and you can buy it for just £72 for a fancy dress costume. Describe to the listener what I'm showing you now, Joey.
Awesome. Luke is describing a Star Wars adult inflatable Han Solo carbonate costume. So it's basically, it looks like a Lilo with Han Solo sort of like sewn into it, and obviously it's all very sort of metal looking, but inflatable.
I think it's probably the best fancy dress costume I've ever seen. Actually, that would work as a Lilo as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
So have you seen a film this week?
I have. And I finally caught up with the latest Marvel movie, so Ant-Man and the Wasp,
yes.
which I hadn't seen yet, but I've now watched it.
With Evangeline
Lilly and Paul Rudd, yes, exactly.
I have a crush on.
Yes.
Evangeline, not...
you know Paul what, Paul Rudd does it for me as well. Very attractive man.
This is your wife now?
Yep. This movie is sort of, the Marvel universe is sort of made for me. I'm such a mark for these movies. I will watch all of them. Yeah. And I'm very heavily invested in them. So I'll watch anything that they put out. But I was a bit disappointed with this one. I did like the first Ant-Man movie. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I didn't. I know of a lot of the development of the original Ant-Man, because I know Edgar
Wright exactly
was on board to do it, and then he dropped out.
Quite late in the process as well.
Yeah, and then I remember seeing the trailer, I was like, that does not look like an Edgar Wright film. Edgar Wright is the director of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. And
there are some bits that are a bit Edgar Wrighty in it, but with Ant-Man and the Wasp, a sequel to it, so it's sort of like acting as a palate cleanser in the Marvel universe, because it's just come off the back of Infinity War, the Avengers movie, which had a very sort of serious cliffhanger ending, and this happens before the events of that.
Right.
And it's sort of like a light, self-contained movie. It's made a big deal about the fact that the Wasp, so the Evangeline Lilly's character, is getting equal billing with Ant-Man, and this is the first Marvel superhero movie which has a female lead as a co-billed star in their movie, ahead of Captain Marvel, which comes out. But I just felt the character Evangeline Lilly played just didn't get much. There wasn't much heart there. There wasn't much emotion there. She does get the bulk of the action scenes, but there was just something that was a little bit lacking, I felt.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. Go see it. I'm not going to think about it again, and I'm probably not going to revisit it at all.
Yeah.
But there were some good bits in it, but it just didn't stay with me at all.
That's a shame.
It is a shame. But yeah, I'm very excited about the next one, Captain Marvel. Is it going to be really good?
Is that the one with Brie Larson?
Brie Larson, yeah, absolutely. Have you watched any of the Marvel movies at all?
Yeah, I remember when most of the first ones were coming out. I remember going to watch the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
Because I was quite a big Robert Downey Jr. fan.
Sure.
I remember going to watch the first Thor movie. I thought they were both very good.
Yeah.
But then it just started to blur into one
a
bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, I really struggle with, like, as a film history geek and stuff.
Sure.
Like, I know just by sort of instinct what was going on in the decade, almost by movie more than anything else.
Sure.
And then when we start getting into the sort of early noughties, especially around like the Marvel films and stuff. But
yeah,
it annoys me that they're all so similar that I can't keep up with the dates and that sort of thing. And that sounds really odd. But it just means that they're so indistinct.
It's ruined my timeline.
Yeah, it sort of has. It's ruined my film history timeline. My inner being.
Yeah. Also, actually, this week we found out that Spielberg is going to be making a second movie about sharks.
Oh, yes.
West Side Story.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
So he's finally making a musical.
That's really cool.
Which we talked about with like 1941 a bit and the beginning of Temple of Doom, that he always wanted to do an actual all-out musical.
Yeah.
But never really got round to it. But this is the first time he's actually going to be all singing, all dancing Spielberg.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and he's cast Ansel Elgort, the man with the name only a mother could love, in one of the lead roles.
And who is he in?
He's the guy in Baby Driver.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. With a name you can't imagine a baby having.
Yeah, it's true.
This is tiny little Ansel Elgort. I don't know.
Apart from in a Tim Burton movie, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly. So should we start talking about the actual movie that we're going to watch?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you hadn't heard, we are talking about... But yeah, so we're going to be talking about Always, which is... I'd never heard of this, had you?
No.
You never heard of it at all? It's sort of like his lost movie, isn't it? That no one talks about.
Yeah.
And so I've come into this pretty blind in the fact that I don't know much about it at all.
Yeah, I know it's got Richard Dreyfuss in it.
Yeah.
Holly Hunter.
And it's a remake, as we mentioned beforehand,
Yeah.
of a 1944 movie called A Guy Named Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all we really know about it.
Yeah.
Do you talk... So... This hasn't been mentioned to you at all in your film school or anything like that?
It's really weird because it's flagged as a sort of like, in my mind, it's flagged as a like, oh, it must be that movie which everyone always forgets.
Okay, sure.
Or isn't talked about very much. Because, there's always, like, there's always...
That was not Bon Jovi.
There's always one which you sort of like, do you tend to forget? Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That one. You know how like you start watching a film on TV or something, you're like, oh, I forgot this is a Ridley Scott movie or whatever. Actually,
this is going to be the movie that if you ever go on Pointless, the game show, remember like the cast in it and remember the director, and this will give you a pointless answer, I reckon.
Yeah. Really weirdly, yesterday, I came home from work and The Chase, the Bradley Walsh program was on. And they said something like, who directed the 1989 film Always? And I was like, I think I know that one. Because I'm doing a podcast about it tomorrow. And then I said Ridley Scott. No. I said Steven Spielberg, and I got it right, and the team didn't. So
did they know? Did the chaser get it right?
It was on the teams round. Teams question, not the chasers. But
damn it. It's really odd how the questions come up. You remember when I asked you on a previous podcast about what the first PG-13 movie was?
Yeah.
After Gremlins and what was the Spielberg movie that...
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom, exactly. So I asked you that, and the day later I was doing HQ, which is like the online movie trivia thing.
Yeah.
And one of the questions came up was, what was the first ever PG-13 movie?
Oh, so odd.
I know, it's really odd how that happens.
Yeah.
Mm.
But what were the options? Was it Temple of Doom or was it Gremlins?
No, I think that'll be too hard. It was like...
Were they really close?
The answer is not a really well-known movie. It's Red Dawn, isn't it? The John Milius movie.
Yes.
And the other options were other sort of obscure 80s movies as well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Gremlins or Temple of Doom, which would be, I think, a harder question. But that, got that one right, didn't I?
Yeah.
Smashed it out of the park.
Listen to our podcast. You can win £1,000 on HQ.
Exactly. Right. So I think we should just crack on and watch the film, shouldn't we? And then we can talk about it afterwards.
Yes, because we don't really have that much material.
Exactly.
For an intro for a film we haven't watched, so we don't know much about. So.
Which is why we're talking more about other things.
Yeah.
So, if you want to watch Always, it's not available on any streaming services that I could see for free. But obviously, we'll post a link where you can rent it either on YouTube or you can on Amazon Prime or wherever you get your movies from.
All right, see you shortly.
We'll see you shortly. How many times do you think we can get away with that before it becomes unfunny?
The penultimate time?
I think we could, yeah. You're absolutely right. I think we've got another 14 or 15 in us.
Yeah.
So we're just back from watching. No, I'm not going to do it again. Always. Not many people have heard of it. Do you want to summarise the plot for the listener in case they haven't been watching?
Sure. So it's the story of Pete Sandich, who is played by Richard Dreyfuss, and he's an aerial firefighter.
He's a hotshot pilot, isn't he?
He is. Like Tom Cruise in Top Gun or something.
Yeah. But looks like Richard Dreyfuss.
So yes, he puts out forest fires and that sort of thing. And he's a massive risk taker when it comes to flying and all that kind of stuff. And his girlfriend, played by Holly Hunter, is not very happy. She's sort of like the air traffic control, isn't she? She's in the tower controlling who's coming in and out. And then he has a best friend, played by John Goodman. And they sort of like have a very much sort of like a bromance.
Okay. And before we say what happens next, we forgot to say this, but obviously we will be talking about full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, go and see the film. But I don't know how if you can really spoil a movie that's this old.
No.
But so are you still listening? Okay. Yeah. So he dies about.
Richard Dreyfuss dies.
Richard Dreyfuss dies about a third of the way through the movie, and he comes back. He gets the opportunity to come back to inspire another pilot.
Exactly.
But that other pilot then starts to fall in love with his girl. And that's essentially what happens. Yeah. So, should we just give me some broad impressions? What did you think of the movie?
I have to admit, right from the get-go, found it quite difficult to get into.
Yeah, really didn't work for me either.
There's just something missing.
Yeah. It felt like a TV movie. It felt like one of those, made straight to DVD movies that felt really weird from coming on the back of just making Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah. Yeah, it also felt really weirdly similar to loads of other movies.
Yeah.
Whoever managed to do it better. Obviously, the whole premise is Ghost, which came out 1 year after this.
Did it? Okay.
1990, with Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes, me too. So I've got like a little list of things it reminded me of. I began by saying, yeah, it's like It's a Wonderful Life. And I thought, it's also a bit like Drop Dead Fred.
It is,
yeah. And I was like, and then it's also a bit like meets Top Gun, and then it's also a bit like meets Ghost. So it's somewhere in between all of that.
It is a little bit like all that, isn't it? Yeah. Which is a really weird... And if you think a combination of those movies doesn't work, you'll be absolutely right.
Yeah, if you've never really considered the comparable relationship between Drop Dead Fred and Top Gun, you haven't had a night in.
You haven't been lonely. What I think didn't work about the whole film is it didn't know what it was meant to be. It starts off and you think it's trying to be a comedy.
Yes.
There's like quick fire lines that don't really work. There's a lot of little visual gags that usually work quite well in Spielberg films.
Yes.
And it's trying to be, very quick, whip smart. Everyone's got a bit of attitude and everyone's doing firing back quips back at each other.
Yeah.
But none really made me laugh.
But yeah, do you know how I wrote that down?
How?
Very annoying characters at the beginning.
Yeah, really annoying.
That's what I wrote down.
Especially Richard Dreyfuss. I think we'll come back to that. Let's park that because I do want to talk about Richard Dreyfuss in a bit more detail in a second.
Yeah.
But then then it goes into trying to be a drama while trying to be a bit comedic at the same time.
Yes.
But I didn't get any emotion really from...
No, I didn't feel any real connection between Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter. I'm afraid.
Really didn't.
It didn't feel like that was a real relationship.
I thought Holly Hunter did well with I think she's the best thing in the movie. I think she did well with the material she got given. But it didn't have any drama. It didn't have much comedy. It's just
nothing to pull me into the story. I was on the outside of it the whole time.
It was just meh. I was like Richard Dreyfuss watching the story, felt very, very distant from it. Yeah.
I'm going to say this because you haven't said it yet.
Yeah.
The whole thing felt very, very hammy.
It did.
In terms of plot point as well. Actually, the acting is quite good, especially from Holly Hunter.
Yeah.
But, oh man, the
I might query that, but yeah.
The plot points, it's so heavy-handed. I mean... I think Ray Charles could see that he was going to die.
Oh yeah, there's so much foreshadowing, isn't there?
There's foreshadowing.
He's a risk taker. One of these days, Richard Dreyfuss, you're gonna meet your end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It couldn't be more in your face.
Yeah, which is why I said it's like a TV movie, isn't it? It's
difficult to, when you see the final destination of where you're getting to, like, it doesn't, and you go there exactly as planned and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no tension there
Exactly.
or anything, is there?
This turned out exactly as we thought it would.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about... All right, let's talk... You mentioned tension there. There was no tension.
Yeah.
I would argue that some of the the actual scenes in the plane and, as they're running out of fuel, as they're fighting the fire, did actually generate some tension quite well.
Okay.
I thought everything else about the relationship, all the stuff on the ground, as you said, was a bit work. But there were bits where I was like, okay, the visual effects are impressive for this bit. They're shooting this quite well. It's doing some interesting things. There is a bit of tension there, although the outcome in the fact that Richard Dreyfuss is going to die.
Yeah.
So I did think there was some tension there, but I am being... the look on your face, I can tell you disagree, but I thought that was something that it had something going for it, which elevated it beyond a normal TV movie directed by someone else.
Yeah. Okay.
You're wrong, Luke, but
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, they were quite eventful. They were quite watchable, the flight scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
So, as we've already mentioned, this is a remake of a film called...
A Guy Named Joe.
Yes. Which is set in World War II.
Yeah.
And I can imagine this is very much like... You know how... Have you seen Brief Encounter, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You know how, not to be confused with Close Encounters. I'm talking about the David Lean romantic movie.
Yes.
You can tell how it was made in the wartime, and it's very much about women went out to work in the factories and stuff like that to help build the
classic times,
Spitfires and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you can tell that the moral statement from that kind of movie is, right, we all lost our heads during the war. Now we want to go back to normality, go back to your husbands, settle down, and all of that kind of stuff. Watching this as a remake, knowing this is a remake of that kind of time in history, it didn't really... I can imagine, as I was watching it, I can imagine that the message that they're trying to get is this war has done some terrible things, but now it's time to settle back down and find new love and all of that kind of stuff. I could see that that's where it's coming from. So
to explain to the listener, they've transported the original movie was set at World War II fighter jets, and they were sort of bombing military targets and things like that. But because they've moved this to the 80s, they're now fighting forest fires. Sorry, I just thought I'd interject with that.
Yes, that's very important to mention. Because that adds to my sense of pointlessness about this movie. Holly Hunter even says, you're going to lose your life to something pointless, which is putting out fires. Obviously putting out fires is actually quite a serious thing.
We've lost our firefighter contingent.
But Steven Spielberg loves World War II so much. He loves war movies and stuff, and he's really good at making them. Yeah. Why do you think he chose to make this a contemporary story? Because World War II has got a lot more weight to it. If the Richard Dreyfuss character was in World War II, he would have something to fight for, and he didn't lose his life in something seemingly unimportant.
That's a very good question, and I hadn't really thought about that, and I don't know the answer, because you're absolutely right. I think it would have worked better because
in World War II.
In World War II, because you're right, it feels pointless him being so dangerous for something where he could have potentially, even the first scene where he's done something dangerous. It's not that he's tried to save someone; he just hasn't put enough fuel in his tank. Yeah, and he's just bad planning. And then he has to do something crazy in order to try and glide in, and that made you think well, this guy's an idiot. Yeah. Rather than this guy's done something heroic. Yeah, it's like he's made a rookie error. Very good point. Yeah, which adds to my annoyance of the character from the get-go. Yeah, and then on top of that, was the sort of New York wisecracking sense of humour, which just felt incongruous with everything else. Personally, I didn't relate to. No, not at all. Which extended to the rest of the movie, because there are times where he literally seems to just be stood over someone's, watching someone's life or whatever. He's not helping someone's day-to-day life or whatever. He's literally just wisecracking. Oh yeah, good job. Just being really cynical. Which is unhelpful, quite unfunny. If he said something counter to what was going on or whatever, I could see the point of him being there. Otherwise, he seemed redundant. Yes, but I guess so. I don't disagree with anything you're saying there. Have you seen the original, A Guy Named Joe?
No, I've read the plot.
You've read the plot, okay. Apparently, Always is from what I read from some of the reviews, Always is a better movie than that, because apparently A Guy Named Joe is even more sentimental.
Really?
And it's sort of described as being very, very saccharine and sickly sweet. And
but what's weird is that I'm more susceptible to that with it being an older movie.
Yeah.
I go with Gone with the Wind, knowing it's an older movie, and the whole thing seems very melodramatic.
True, but that is a classic though. So that is a well-made melodrama.
It is, but it is massively over the top that you could never get away with it now.
Yeah. So apparently Spielberg wanted to make this movie because A Guy Named Joe is one of the movies that made him cry as a kid.
Yes.
And he talked about this with Richard Dreyfuss, didn't he, on the set of Jaws?
Yes, who boasts of having seen the film sort of 35 times or something.
Something like that,
and they just quipped back and forth lines and things.
Exactly, and they remembered shots and they reminisced and things like that. And apparently Richard Dreyfuss said, if you ever remake this, you've got to cast me in the role.
Yeah, and it sounds like he kept doing it as well throughout the gap between Jaws and this.
Yeah.
He kept calling him up saying, remember we got to make this film. Remember we got to remake that film.
Because it had been on Spielberg's agenda for a decade before this. I think it first been signed by MGM, wasn't it? In 1980.
Right.
To be made. And what they did is they commissioned Diane Thomas, who wrote Romancing the Stone, so the Robert Zemeckis movie. And they commissioned her to do a script. But she died, unfortunately, in a car accident, like a year after Romancing the Stone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was only 39 or so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So her version of Always never really came to fruition at all.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why there was such a delay in that happening.
I've heard Steven Spielberg say he feels like it was lucky that there was a delay because he felt he had the maturity now to make this.
I had that as well, because he said he thought he would try and make it more of a comedy if he was younger, more like 1941, I guess.
Yeah.
Or go overboard on some of the visual effects, but he wanted to tone everything down.
Yeah.
But compare this to someone who makes like Schindler's List 4 years later, or has just come off making even The Colour Purple or Empire of the Sun. It feels like a bit of a misstep, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It really does. But yeah, it ended up being written by a guy called Jerry Belson, who gets the sole screen credit. And I think Tom Stoppard did, again, some rewriting on the script, but he doesn't get a credit for it. Should we talk about the casting?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Richard Dreyfuss. What did you think of his performance?
Personally, I didn't like it.
No, not did I. So I think Spielberg himself had some reservations, even though he was being constantly pestered by Dreyfuss, like you said, throughout the entire last decade that, you've got to cast me in this movie.
Yeah.
And he had some reservations about Richard Dreyfuss as a credible romantic lead. I still have those reservations.
Yeah.
But apparently he saw Stakeout in 1988, the year before.
Okay.
And apparently that convinced him that he can be a leading man. Have you seen Stakeout?
No, I haven't.
It's with Emilio Estevez. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I have seen a scene where Emilio Estevez is like playing like a quiz with him, where he's like quoting trivia lines from movies. And he's like, "Oh, what movie is that?" And then I think he says like, "Oh, we're gonna need a bigger boat. What movie is that from?" And Richard Dreyfuss was like, "No idea."
That's quite good.
It's quite good. Yeah. But yeah, I just felt Dreyfuss came across as really annoyingly smug.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, he seemed very like he was God's gift to Holly Hunter to some
Exactly,
extent.
he was a real bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And
but not in a funny way. Like we've mentioned that Hooper is a bit of a dick in Jaws.
But in a funny way, yeah.
He gets away with it because he's really funny.
Yeah,
he comes in and he sort of like understands the situation more. Whereas this, he seems like just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I didn't put fuel in my tank. Yeah, Holly Hunter loves me. Of course she does.
Yeah.
It's just very quite unlikable.
Yeah,
I would say very unlikable, quite unlikable.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. He's almost verging on being a bit emotionally abusive to Holly Hunter.
Yeah.
I found he tells her what to do the entire time, and like withholds, his Holly just wants him to say he loves her, and he doesn't do it. Just makes some wisecracks. I just did not like the man.
Yeah. Well, he did shout "I love you," didn't he? But she didn't hear. She walked away.
Well, that's convenient, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, this added to this whole sort of like, if he doesn't die, I will eat my hat.
Exactly.
Feeling.
But then he dies, and he seems really nonplussed about the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I'm dead. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was no sense like, I must get back to Holly Hunter. I must tell her how I feel. No,
No,
I'm
he
just
just-
like, oh yeah.
Oh, there she is. He actually just coincidentally sees her.
Yeah.
Where he is. Oh, yeah. Oh, her. I remember her.
Yeah.
She was nice. There was just not much
was-
emotional heft there.
He was far too relaxed.
Yeah.
About the whole thing.
Yeah. No.
He was facing no moral dilemma, really. Well, apart from like, I don't really want this new guy to take my girl.
Yeah.
But it was not a dilemma. It was just like, this is how it is.
I felt that new guy. So the new guy we're referring to is the character Ted Baker, who's played by a guy called Brad Johnson. Some of his acting
I know.
was so wooden.
Yeah.
Like the forest fires were less wooden than his acting.
I wrote down because I thought, wow, what a final line after a date, which had gone quite well. He says, "Sleep tight, baby sister." Would you say that at the end of a date?
I've never been on one. No, that is that is, you can't make that's because actually that scene where he's cooking, where they're having a meal together, is actually one of the better scenes with him. There was actually a bit of chemistry between the two. Everything before and after, and then that, like, it's just he's lumbered with awful dialogue, and he's a nothing character. It looks like there's absolutely nothing going on in his brain whatsoever throughout the entire time.
He's literally just like a cardboard cutout of like a hunky guy.
Yeah,
isn't he?
exactly. And that also annoyed me. It's like, why is someone who looks like Brad Johnson being giving romance advice by someone, no offence, who looks like Richard Dreyfuss? That's like me giving The Rock personal training lessons.
Well, it's no wonder that Holly Hunter got over Richard Dreyfuss in less than a year.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely fine. No worries there. Because this was his first film gig, Brad Johnson's. He was just found by Spielberg in a beer commercial.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Let's talk about something good. I thought the best person in this was Holly Hunter by far.
Yeah, she was good.
I really like Holly Hunter anyway. She can do no wrong in my book.
Yeah, she's quite different because, she has a very particular way of talking.
I love it. She could read any audiobook to me.
Yeah. But
I want her on my sat-nav.
But because she's quite young in this, her voice is not as deep.
It's not as southern, is it?
No.
It's not as, yeah.
Not quite as strong as Holly Hunter as we know her now.
Yeah. But she's the one who carries any semblance of the emotional heft that the movie does have. And I like the thing that she has the funnier moments as well. I did like that scene where she's cooking and she's, spilling stuff all over herself to make it look like she's actually cooked. I quite enjoyed that scene.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that she's the one who saves the day, even though she spends the entire movie being told what to do by a man, and even then you've got ghost Richard Dreyfuss over his shoulder telling her what to do. But I do understand that because she's obviously not as good a pilot as he was, so that's fine. But I do like she actually got something to do at the end. Yeah, but I thought she was the best there. She's what made this remotely watchable.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned this briefly beforehand. It was Audrey Hepburn's last movie.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, who plays some sort of angel figure in the afterlife.
Yes, she reminded me a little bit of like the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio.
There was a reference in that scene actually. I don't know if you caught it. So I was very pleased with myself for catching this. So as he's walking up, to meet Audrey Hepburn, and he's just died, he whistles "Follow the Yellow Brick Road."
Oh, really?
Which is obviously from The Wizard of Oz, which was a film by the director of a guy named Joe, Victor Fleming.
Yeah, that's cool. Very good.
I was very pleased with myself.
I'll tell you what else I noticed.
Yeah.
So, the song is played twice, and then in the end credits as well, I think, if you hadn't already got the idea. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes.
Sure.
Song. Remember he sort of dances with Holly Hunter in the bar to that song?
Yes.
It's like a live band.
Yes, that's right, it's their song, isn't it?
Playing it, it's their couple song.
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me a lot of, can you remember in American Graffiti?
Yeah.
When you've got Steve and Laurie, they're in the gym and they're basically just breaking up because Steve, who's played by Ron Howard, is just about to go off to university and stuff, and he said, I think we should break up.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, like, they're both like the popular kids at their high school, and they're basically sort of a spotlight goes on them, and they're basically in the middle of breaking up, and then Smoke Gets in Your Eyes comes on, and Laurie's there going, go to hell, right as they have to sort of like smile and sort of dance to each other.
That does. I didn't know that was that song though.
So I'm convinced there's no way Spielberg wasn't like sort of
aware of that.
He's definitely picked that song because he thought it's got undertones where it's first of all it's a good song, and then it's also like you can like reimagine it in a couple of different circumstances. circumstances.
Yes,
Can't you?
It's true.
It's fine in this context when it's their couple song in the bar.
It brings on ulterior meaning for lots of different circumstances.
Yes. So then for the next time we hear it, it seems even sadder.
Yeah, and for the listener, so American Graffiti has pertinence because it's a George Lucas film and it also stars Richard Dreyfuss in it.
Exactly. Yeah, Laurie, who I'm talking about, is Richard Dreyfuss's character's sister.
Yeah. Going back to that purgatory scene, why was Audrey Hepburn cutting his hair?
I'm not sure.
It just felt really weird.
Yeah, it's like a barbershop thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to dwell on that. I thought that was really, really strange.
Some of it, to begin with, I was like really not sure about that heaven purgatory state, but I slowly sort of warmed to it. I was like, I don't mind the idea that, you know, they're in this very green, grassy spot, and then the rest of it was like burnt trees.
Sure.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
That grew on me. Because
Okay.
to begin with, I was like, that looks really naff. It looks like a child's idea of what kind of heaven might be.
Yeah.
And then I slowly sort of warmed to it.
I think it's more like a purgatory rather than it's like first.
Well, he is in purgatory. Isn't he?
Yeah.
He's still on Earth, isn't he?
Yeah.
I can't relate to anyone.
Shall we talk about some of the Spielbergian tropes?
Yes.
Anything you noticed?
I noticed I can't remember if he took his glasses off or on. He took them off.
Yeah.
It looked almost exactly like Sam Neill in Jurassic Park.
I didn't notice that. Very good.
Aviators.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that a lot of these sort of like green army trucks and stuff are very, very similar to the ones they have in Indiana Jones.
Yeah. He seemed to. I didn't realise this until this, but he does seem to be obsessed with aircraft, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Planes, like
Yes.
I don't think we mentioned this, but planes have featured so heavily. Like, so I've written down 1941, all the Indiana Jones movies, Empire of the Sun, and now this.
They feature heavily in Empire of the Sun. I also, because after thinking about how many planes and stuff, I had the same thought. I was reminded of Empire of the Sun. Remember when that guy tries to stop the bus or something, the older guy, and he's there doing chest compressions.
Yes, really poor chest compressions again. Another bad medicine thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really not good.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yep, carry on.
That's what I was going to say. Is that
It
reminded me of Empire of the Sun very much.
Yeah. I thought the use of light, which is a real common theme with Spielberg and whoever he uses as is. Would it be the cinematographer or the DOP? Who does all the light, organises all the lights?
Well, the director of photography sort of like designs the lights and stuff, and then the gaffer is the person who puts them all on rigs and all that stuff based on those plans.
But the actual artistic design of where the light goes on to, would that be cinematographer?
Yes, cinematographer, yeah.
Cinematographer.
Cinematographer and director of photography are the same thing.
Are they the same thing?
Director of photography does the job of the cinematographer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So in a movie, there wouldn't be two separate jobs, being director of photographer and cinematographer. They'd be the same person.
Well, don't get confused with camera operator, because they're different jobs.
Okay, sure.
Most director of photographies or cinematographers don't usually sort of handle their own lights on cameras.
Sure.
They're much more of the architect.
Okay, yeah.
The gaffer is much more like the hands-on, putting up the lights he'd be the one with the gloves on.
Sure.
And then you have your separate camera operators, and you might have a couple of them.
Yeah,
depending on how many cameras you have.
Fine. Okay. So I thought the design, so the cinematographer was actually relatively, quite good in this.
It was okay.
So,
I remember seeing a couple of those shots, especially in Holly Hunter's house, when there was light coming through the blind and stuff, and I was like, if I didn't know anything about this movie, could look at that shot for a second and know it was an 80s movie.
Okay.
It looked literally like something from Flashdance.
Okay.
Or something.
Very
tacky.
Tacky. Okay. Well, what I thought was, they made like. She was often bathed in warm light or so. There was even some bits which looked a bit E.T.-like in the fact that her chest was actually sort of warm and glowing. And then
Audrey Hepburn or Holly Hunter?
Holly Hunter.
Yeah.
Holly Hunter. And then every time, there's lots of blues and things like that. Every time Richard Dreyfuss is on screen, he's more cold and pale and things like that. So more ghostly, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert. But I just thought we know that however well executed we think it was, Spielberg does use light to try and tell story in a lot of his films, and I thought that was done as well in this one.
Yeah, no, I guess it was.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the individual shots.
No, fair enough.
It's very 80s looking. But no, the ideas behind that is quite good. Yeah.
The other thing I noticed was, and I mentioned them briefly, was some of the visual gags. So we've talked a lot about Steven Spielberg's more serious films. There's always like a little, there's moments of levity in the background. You can actually see a little visual joke. The beginning scene was full of them. Yeah. And they tried to bring them more to the forefront. But I think when they work in in other films, it's because you've got a serious narrative going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And you notice these little bits for little bits of levity.
Yeah.
When there's not really much going on in the foreground at all, then the stuff in the background doesn't really matter.
Yeah. When John Goodman got covered in the red dust and
stuff,
I thought that was almost straight out of 1941.
It
didn't make me laugh.
No, it didn't make me laugh either.
But still quite a big stunt.
It was a big stunt, but the problem is you knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
From the very beginning. It's like the joke will be into that, and we have to watch a 5-minute sequence for that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no surprise.
Look how annoyed John Goodman's going to be because he keeps on getting stuff on him. I mean, it's just it's 90s children's TV show humour, isn't it? You know, he got guns. It's like Get Your Own Back.
Yeah.
With Dave Benson Phillips. Yeah. Who I think now is trying to be a wrestler. Fun fact. A little extra bit. Did you notice the name of the cat?
No.
The cat in the movie was called Linda Blair.
Oh yes, who is the
girl from The Exorcist.
Yeah.
So I quite like the fact that there was an Exorcist reference in a ghost story.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And did you notice Dan Aykroyd was in it?
No.
As I think this is a famous SNL sketch or something like that, but he was acting as the chef Julia Childs on the screen.
Oh, obviously I remember that scene. Yeah, because there's a.
I think
they hold on that shot for a long time.
Yeah,
don't they?
There's a famous sketch. I think it was on SNL where Dan Aykroyd is acting as Julia Childs, and she ends up doing her voice, accidentally cutting off her fingers, and I've got blood everywhere. It's quite a famous sketch, and they're watching that.
That's what they're watching. Okay, yeah, I definitely remember that bit, but I didn't know it was Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to mention, did you see? So in the end, I didn't watch the end credits. I did actually read about this. So there's a bit in the movie when they've got a helium balloons right at the beginning.
Yes, and they both say something.
Yes, because for some strange reason, Brad Johnson's first job is like a plane courier. He delivers people things by plane.
Right.
Which I wasn't aware that was ever a job. Who orders things by plane? Anyway, never mind. But he delivers some balloons for Holly Hunter's birthday. They inhale the helium, and
Is that Woody Woodpecker they were doing?
Yeah, Woody Woodpecker, and hilarity ensued, as you can hear. But at the end of the credits, it says inhalation of helium from balloons is dangerous and can cause serious injury or death. I've not seen that in a movie before.
I wish they told me that at the beginning.
Exactly.
No, sorry, I should say. I wish they told me that at the beginning.
Is that your helium voice?
Yeah.
You sound like Joe Pasquale. He speaks very highly of you. Sorry. I'm just full of dad jokes, aren't I?
Luke's dad, when did you get here?
Yeah, my dad wishes he said that joke.
Are you okay to start talking about themes?
Let's talk about themes.
So, some of the things sort of reminded me of AI, and we won't talk about this too much because we can talk more about in AI. The idea of trying to reconnect when circumstances are not conducive with that.
Sure.
So, not to give too much away about AI, but basically he's trying to get back in contact with the family that adopt him.
Yep.
Is as much as I can say at this point. And then, of course, Richard Dreyfuss is trying to rekindle? No, he's not really.
It's just happened.
He's just there.
And he got told by Audrey Hepburn to go back. He's like, all right,
yeah,
got nothing better to do. I'm dead. I don't know what his motivation was. I think once he's there and once he accidentally runs into Holly Hunter, he does then he realizes that Ted Baker's a nice guy and he does want to help and he does want her to move on and her to be happy. But so
basically, I think it's the same theme, but just done incredibly less well.
Yes, yeah. No,
and
exactly.
Then what else I wrote down? It feels like from the point when Richard Dreyfuss died, and then was over the shoulder of various people, sort of whispering in their ears, the idea is that becomes their sort of subconscious thought or whatever. Very much, it's almost like an entire movie based on the one moment in Star Wars where Obi-Wan speaks to Luke from beyond the grave and says, "Use the Force, Luke." It's trying to be that ethereal moment throughout for a whole movie.
But he's there the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than just coming for the key movements, he's just hanging around.
Yeah. It works in Star Wars because it's at Luke's real moment of heroism that he needs that final push.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas when you have and it's really useful advice, use the Force, Luke. Whereas to have a wisecracking Richard Dreyfuss at your worst moment,
just going, "What you doing?
Yeah.
What you doing? Hey there.
She's still my girl." It just didn't quite ring as deep.
Absolutely.
While we're talking about this, we tend to always mention Spielberg's relationship to fathers.
Yes.
And perhaps his own father.
Yeah.
Do you think it could be said that this film is sort of like thinking of the Richard Dreyfuss character? Are they trying to tell this story as if it's from the absent father's point of view? Is he trying to think about his own father who had left the family when he was young?
As in, like he wants someone over his shoulder giving him inspiration for...
Yeah, like a fatherly figure. Is he trying to think like, oh, this is how my father must have felt when he missed all of these great moments when I was growing up? Or
I don't... if that was in his mind, it hasn't been translated well onto the screen.
Yeah.
Because he does not come across as a fatherly figure. He comes across as an annoying little brother.
That's true.
Rather...
I think Holly Hunter and Richard Dreyfuss have a very sibling-esque relationship.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
It doesn't seem loving. It doesn't seem like an adult, loving, romantic relationship. It seems like a bickering brother and sister relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not convinced, simply because if he wanted to tell that story, I think there'll be much clearer ways and you'd use different devices in order to tell that story.
Yeah.
I think he just wanted to make the remake of this thing he remembered as a child.
Yeah.
And the fact that he had such fond memories of it, but I guess not many other people did.
Yeah. Well, I'm just still absolutely baffled why he's changed the setting from like World War II, where there's a lot of high stakes, to 1989, because it just doesn't. And how he
made this at the same time as making Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is one of the funniest, it's probably Spielberg's funniest movie.
Maybe, because they always say, like, if you do two things, you're not going to do justice to both of them.
Yeah.
Maybe, Last Crusade, he just had more time on it or something.
Maybe.
And this was very much sort of like in my downtime or whatever.
I mean, it could be. But then again, if you look at the other movies he's done with that, you've got Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in one year. And then you've got, more recently, The Post and Ready Player One, which all had much more critical acclaim.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of a year in which things have been a bit less successful, and that has recreated it. I mean, no, not really. 2002, you got Minority Report and Catch Me If You Can. So it's not. This is the first year where he's done two at once.
But he's done so well with Last Crusade, so
yeah, it's fine. So it actually made money at the box office, didn't it?
Yeah, it didn't do too badly.
It didn't lose him money. It cost 30 million to make, mainly because of all the visual effects from the planes, and it made about, what was it, $77 million worldwide? Yeah, that's right. Talking about the visual effects, so like I said, I thought they were the element that did work a little bit better. They had a bit of tension to it, and they were impressively shot. The forest fires, they used a lot of real footage of forest fires in Yellowstone National Park to make it more realistic. And there was a scene where the plane starts to land, it's landing directly into the camera, which I thought was very good. Do you remember that one?
Yeah,
that shot?
Cool.
That was very impressive. And that was, I think they did that with a mirror.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So obviously they didn't want to put the camera crew in danger by having a plane fly directly at them. But they filmed this all in the mirror, and then ILM, the visual effects lot, just reversed the number plate.
Ah, that's really clever.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Which was that was the best sort of visual effect that I could see in that movie. I think they were going to, in one of the original drafts, they were going to make things a bit more ghosty in the fact, as a technical term we use in the film business. He was going to make Richard Dreyfuss walk through walls and things like that. He might have a bit of an ethereal light around him. Things are going to be a bit more classically ghost-like.
Yeah.
But he wanted to drop that because he thought it would take away from the drama.
Right, to make it more relatable. But the trouble is, the characters were not relatable enough.
Exactly.
Because they weren't likeable enough.
And this was released in Oscar season as well, so it was released in December because I think Spielberg still has yet to win an Oscar at this point, and he's trying to his more serious films. I think he's making a conscious effort to release them around the time. Still, although he's made Empire of the Sun and Colour Purple, he's still seen as a blockbuster guy who has mixed results when it comes to doing something a bit more adult.
Yeah,
but it obviously got 0 nominations.
Yeah.
So, Joey, what I might try to start off to do is I'm going to tell you what a few of the critics said around the time of the movies. And we'll see if this works, and we might do this in some future stuff.
What, do I have to guess the film?
No, it's not a quiz. But what I thought, if we read what a critic thought was good about a movie or bad about the movie, and we can see if we agree with it or not.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so I'm on Metacritic at the moment, and it's always has got a score bang in the middle at 50 out of 100. So the people who liked it, so we've got Dave Kerr at the Chicago Tribune, and he says it's a film in which an entertainer at last becomes an artist, dealing with manifestly personal, painful emotions and casting them in a form that gives them philosophical perspective and universal affect. It's Spielberg's finest achievement, a film that will look better and better with the passage of time.
Is he still working that review?
I'm sorry, Dave, I think you got things a bit wrong there. Yeah, well, I mean, that's like the opposite of what we've just said.
Yes.
I mean, I think it looks worse and worse with the passage of time.
Yeah.
And, dealing with manifestly personal and painful emotions. I felt that we've said that all of the quips and the things like that, and the lack of emotion just detract from anything serious.
Yeah, it pulls you away from anything personal.
Let's go on something a little bit more negative. So, from the San Francisco Chronicle, always is such a lamentable production. Hardly a moment rings true that you almost feel like saying, pardon me, when you wonder why it apparently didn't occur to Spielberg or anyone else involved that no chemistry was taking place. Not only are the stars rather uninteresting people, they don't seem to like each other in any way that you can feel.
That's true.
I sort of agree.
Well,
I mean, it's not a lamentable production, but you can, like you said, Joe, you can clearly see there's no chemistry between the two.
Yeah, I think Holly Hunter fancies the cat more than Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. This is actually quite an interesting one. So this was Janet Maslin at the New York Times. Gentle and moving as it means to be, always is overloaded. There's barely a scene here that wouldn't have worked better with less fanfare. Which I sort of agree with. It is overloaded with sort of saccharine sweetness. Yeah. Especially the score as well. You know, it tells you you should be feeling this. Yeah. Feel it more. Feel it more. Why aren't you feeling it?
We'll put it in the dialogue in case you haven't got the point yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's just so hammy. So heavy-handed. Mm-hmm. So that concludes our episode on...
Should we just leave the whole of always playing? Because I think people need to hear it now.
No, we can't.
Okay, copyright. Damn it. That was always. It was fine, I guess.
I feel like we slightly took one for the team on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be revisiting this at all.
No.
I'd be interested to know what you guys think if you were watching along. Do you think we got it completely wrong? And have we missed the point? Yeah.
Very interested to know if you think this is your favourite Spielberg movie or whatever.
Exactly.
I would genuinely be very interested to know why.
It's not going to be your favourite, but if you like it, I think... Well, anyway, just get in contact with us and let us know what you think about it. So, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast, and you can also follow us on Instagram at The Bigger Boat Podcast. And if you want to email us, you can email us on
thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com.
And remember, let us know what you think about these things. We can comment on them in future episodes. So, next episode is... Oh, I'm excited actually.
Hook.
It's Hook. Yes. So, yes, I haven't seen this since I was a child.
I remember being in the cinema watching this one.
You saw this at cinema?
Yeah, 1991.
So you must have been like 5.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, I can honestly remember it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did the boo box terrify you?
Yes, it did. And I just remember being sort of like, I remember being mesmerised by, do you remember Captain Hook's moustache?
Yes.
Ticks in time with the clock.
I didn't remember that. We'll talk about this next episode.
Yeah, I was just amazed by that.
That's great. That is good. Cool. So we will catch you guys next week. If you follow us on Twitter, you can vote for your favourite Spielberg movie. We'll be trying to elect the public's very favourite Spielberg movie in a knockout tournament. So keep an eye on our Twitter page for that.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.